My name is Mia Brooks, and I'm 32 years old. 3 weeks ago, I sat in a lawyer's office in downtown Denver and learned that my grandmother had left me $2.8 million in her will. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the document. What made it even more surreal was what came next. A handwritten letter from Grandma Rose explaining why she'd kept this fortune a secret from everyone, including me. She'd watched our family tear itself apart over money for decades, and she wanted me to have the chance she never did, the chance to see people clearly before they knew what I was worth. So I made a decision that would change everything. I wouldn't tell a soul. If you're listening right now, drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. And before I continue, please like this video and subscribe. I share true stories about loyalty, betrayal, and the moments that reveal who people really are. Before that life-changing afternoon, my existence was predictable in the way that slowly drains you. I taught 4th grade at a public school in Aurora, Colorado, earning $52,000 a year, which sounds reasonable until you factor in Denver's skyrocketing rent, student loans from my teaching degree, and the medical bills from my car accident 2 years ago. My apartment was a cramped one-bedroom in a building where the heating worked only when it felt like it. Every month was a careful calculation. Rent, utilities, minimum loan payments, groceries. If my old Honda Civic needed repairs, I'd have to skip something else. That was just my reality. My family situation was complicated, to put it mildly. My parents divorced when I was 11 and both remarried within 3 years. My father, Richard, was a mid-level manager at a tech company who'd married Vanessa, a woman 15 years younger with expensive taste and zero interest in his previous life. My mother, Karen, married Doug, a successful real estate developer who treated his money like a fortress and me like an unwelcome visitor. Then there were my siblings. My older brother, Tyler, 36, had always been the golden child. He'd gone to business school, married a pediatrician named Amanda, and now lived in a gorgeous house in Cherry Creek with their 2 kids. Tyler had a way of making everything look effortless, including ignoring me unless he needed something. My younger sister, Brittany, 28, was the opposite kind of exhausting. She bounced between jobs and boyfriends, always in crisis mode, always needing money she'd never pay back. The extended family wasn't much better. Aunt Patricia, my father's sister, had married into old Denver money and never let anyone forget it. Her son Marcus was a 30-year-old trust fund kid who'd failed at 3 startups funded by his parents and was now developing what he called a cryptocurrency investment platform. I called it gambling with extra steps. But then there was Aunt Rosa. My mother's younger sister was the black sheep of the family, though she'd never done anything wrong except stay poor. She worked as a hotel housekeeper, had raised 2 kids alone after her husband left, and lived in a tiny apartment in a rough neighborhood. The family talked about her with a mixture of pity and disdain. Poor Rosa, she never could get her life together. What they didn't mention was that Rosa had dropped out of college to help care for Grandma Rose when she first got sick, while everyone else was too busy with their own lives. Over the years, I'd learned the hard way what my family really valued. When Tyler got married, he asked me to help cover some wedding costs since I was a bridesmaid. I put $3,000 on my credit card after he promised to pay me back within a month. That was 4 years ago. I never saw a dime. When Brittany got evicted from her apartment, I let her stay with me for 3 months and loaned her $1,500 for a deposit on a new place. She moved out without a word and blocked my number when I asked about the money. When my father mentioned his basement flooded and insurance wouldn't cover everything, I sent him $800, only to see photos on Facebook 2 weeks later of him and Vanessa at a resort in Cabo. The only person who ever seemed to notice these patterns was my best friend, Jenna. We'd met in college, and she'd been my constant through every family disaster. Jenna was a physical therapist, pragmatic and kind, and she'd watched me get burned so many times she'd started keeping track. "You know what your problem is?" she told me once, over wine at her apartment. "You keep hoping they'll be different. You keep giving them chances to prove you wrong, and they keep proving you right." She was right, but knowing something and accepting it are 2 different things. My one small act of rebellion was buying scratch tickets every Friday. Nothing crazy, just $10 worth. Everyone mocked me for it. Tyler called it a tax on people who can't do math. Brittany said I should just give her the money instead. Even my mother would sigh dramatically whenever it came up. But for me, those tickets weren't about probability. They were about possibility. A tiny weekly reminder that life could change in an instant. Grandma Rose was the only one who understood. When I was little, she'd buy me a single scratch ticket on my birthday, and we'd scratch it together at her kitchen table. Never won more than $20, she'd say with a wink, but the dreaming was free. She passed away on a Tuesday in March, quietly in her sleep at 87. The funeral was a strange affair. Family members who'd barely visited her in years suddenly appeared, dabbing at dry eyes and talking about what a wonderful woman she'd been. I sat in the back, genuinely grieving the one person in my family who'd ever made me feel truly seen. A week later, I received a call from her attorney asking me to come in for a private reading of a portion of her will. I assumed she'd left me some jewelry or her collection of first edition books. What I didn't expect was a bank statement showing $2.8 million and a letter that would change how I saw everything. "My dearest Mia," the letter began. "If you're reading this, I'm gone, and I owe you an explanation. This money came from your grandfather's family, a trust that matured years ago. I never told anyone because I watched what money did to the people around me. It turned your uncle greedy. It made your mother entitled. It brought out the worst in everyone except you. You're the only one who ever visited me because you wanted to, not because you expected something. You're the only one who saw me as more than what I could give. I'm leaving this to you because I trust you to do what I never could, to see clearly, to protect yourself. Take your time. Don't tell anyone until you understand who they really are. And remember, sweetheart, money doesn't change people. It just shows you who they've always been. I love you, Grandma Rose." I sat in that lawyer's office for 20 minutes after reading the letter, trying to process what she'd given me. Not just the money, but a warning, a challenge. And by the time I walked out, I knew exactly what I had to do. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked with Grandma Rose's attorney to set up a trust, secure the funds, and make sure everything was protected and anonymous. The money existed now, real and tangible, but my life looked exactly the same. Same apartment, same car, same job. The only difference was the weight of the secret I carried. And the more I thought about my family, the more I wondered, who among them would be there for me if I truly needed help? Not for Grandma's money, which they didn't know about, not for anything I could give them, just for me. The idea took shape slowly, then all at once. I would test them. I'd create a believable crisis and see who showed up. Charlotte, my friend, was the first person I told about my plan. Mia. "This is manipulative," she said, frowning. "You're setting them up to fail." "Am I?" I asked. "Or am I finally giving them a chance to prove me wrong? I've spent years being the one who shows up, who helps, who gives. I just want to know if any of them would do the same for me." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. "What's the story?" I told her I'd say I was facing a financial emergency. A burst pipe in my apartment had caused massive damage, and my renter's insurance had lapsed because I couldn't afford the premium. I needed $6,000 to cover repairs and temporary housing, or I'd be homeless. The amount was significant but not outrageous. Every person I planned to ask could easily afford it. My list had 8 names: my mother and Doug, my father and Vanessa, Tyler and Amanda, Brittany, Aunt Patricia, Marcus, and Aunt Rosa, though I almost didn't include her. She had so little. It felt cruel to even ask. The test began with my mother. I called her on a Saturday morning, my voice carefully strained with just the right amount of distress. When I finished explaining my situation, there was a long pause. "Oh, honey, that's terrible," she said. "But you know, Doug and I just closed on the mountain cabin. We're completely tapped out right now." I reminded her that I'd helped with her kitchen renovation last year. "That was different," she said, her tone cooling. "That was a family project. This is your problem, Mia. Maybe you should have kept up with your insurance payments." After we hung up, I sat very still for a moment, letting the sting settle. Then I wrote down her response in the notebook I'd started for this experiment. My father's reaction was almost worse. He listened to my story with the patience of a man waiting for his turn to speak, then launched into a lecture about financial responsibility that lasted 15 minutes. "This is exactly what I've been warning you about," he said. Teachers don't make enough money. You should have gone into tech like I suggested. Maybe this will be the wake-up call you need. I'd love to help, Cassie, but Vanessa and I are planning a trip to Italy this spring, and we can't jeopardize that. I wanted to scream. Instead, I thanked him for his advice and hung up. Tyler responded to my text 3 hours later. Rough timing, sis. We just put in a pool and Amanda wants to redo the kids' rooms. Let me know if you need help finding a cheaper apartment. My husband handles our finances and he's really strict. Maybe try Brittany? Brittany, predictably, didn't even pretend. Oh my God, that sucks. I'm so broke RN though. You know how it is. Actually, do you think you could loan me $200? I need to get my nails done for this job interview. Aunt Patricia was the most memorable. I visited her at her pristine house in Highlands Ranch, sitting on furniture that probably cost more than my annual salary. Mia, dear, she said, shaking her head with practiced sympathy. I would help, but Harold has very strong feelings about lending money to family. It creates dependency, you know. Perhaps this is an opportunity for growth. Have you considered finding a roommate? Or a second job? I mentioned that I'd tutored Marcus in college for free when he was failing statistics. That's hardly the same thing, she said coolly. We're talking about real money here. Marcus didn't even respond to my message. A week later, I saw on Instagram that he'd bought a new Tesla. By the end of the week, I was emotionally drained. 7 people, 7 rejections. 7 carefully crafted excuses that all boiled down to the same thing. I wasn't worth $6,000 to any of them. Not even to the ones who could afford it without blinking. Not even to the ones who owed me. The only person I hadn't contacted was Aunt Rosa. Part of me wanted to skip her entirely. She worked 60-hour weeks cleaning hotel rooms and could barely cover her own bills. It felt almost cruel to ask her for money I didn't actually need. But something pushed me to call her anyway. Maybe I wanted to complete the experiment. Maybe I already knew what her answer would be. Mija, she said when I explained my situation, her voice full of concern. Why didn't you call me sooner? I started to explain that I knew things were tight for her, but she cut me off. Come over tomorrow. We'll figure this out together. The next evening, I pulled up to Rosa's apartment building in a neighborhood most of my family wouldn't even drive through. She met me at the door with a hug that lasted longer than any I'd received in months. Her apartment was small but warm. Plants crowded the windowsills, and the walls were covered in photos of her kids, her late mother, and a younger Grandma Rose. She sat me down at her kitchen table and pushed a cup of coffee toward me. I've been saving up, she said quietly. For the kids' futures, you know, and for emergencies. She slid an envelope across the table. There's $4,200 here. I know it's not the full amount, but it's everything I have in savings. I stared at the envelope, unable to speak. This woman worked her body to the bone for barely above minimum wage. She'd sacrificed everything for her children, and she was offering me nearly all of it. I can't take this, I whispered. Rosa reached across and squeezed my hand. Family helps family. That's what your grandmother always said. The real kind of family, anyway. That broke me. The tears I'd been holding back for weeks finally came, and I found myself telling her everything. Not just about the money, but about the test. The rejections. The letter from Grandma Rose. All of it spilled out while Rosa listened, her expression shifting from surprise to understanding to something that looked like vindication. I knew it, she said softly when I finished. Your grandmother told me once that she saw something special in you, something different from the others, and I always believed her. You're not angry that I tested everyone? Rosa shook her head slowly. Mija, do you know why I'm the black sheep of this family? It's not because I'm poor, it's because I stopped pretending. I stopped playing the game where we all act like we care about each other while counting every penny we might get from the next funeral. She told me then about her own history with the family, how she'd been cut out of conversations and decisions because she didn't have money to contribute, how her own sister, my mother, had refused to help when Rosa's husband left her with 2 kids and a stack of bills, how Grandma Rose had been the only one who'd ever treated her like she mattered. Your grandmother tried to give me money once, Rosa said. I refused. I told her I didn't want anything that would make me like them, but I think she understood. I think that's why she left everything to you. By the end of that night, Rosa knew the truth about the inheritance. She was the only one I trusted enough to tell. And when I asked her what I should do next, her advice was simple. You don't owe them anything. she said, "but you do owe yourself the truth. Let them show you who they are one more time, then decide." A week later, I called a family meeting. I told everyone I had important news to share. The turnout was impressive, probably because they assumed someone had died and left money. My mother and Doug arrived first, followed by my father and Vanessa. Tyler and Amanda came straight from some charity event, still dressed up. Even Brittany showed, though she spent most of the time on her phone. Aunt Patricia swept in last, Marcus trailing behind her. Rosa came too, sitting quietly in the corner with a small smile that only I understood. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "I know there's been some talk lately about my financial situation." Tyler smirked. "Yeah, we heard you've been asking everyone for money. Kind of awkward, sis." I let his comment hang in the air for a moment. Then I continued. "I wanted to let you all know that my situation has been resolved. I've accepted a new position with a significant salary increase, and I'll be moving into a much better apartment next month." The relief in the room was almost comical. Shoulders relaxed. Fake smiles appeared. "That's wonderful news," my mother said. "We were all so worried about you." "Were you?" I asked quietly. "Because when I called asking for help, you told me you'd just bought a cabin. Dad, you lectured me about financial responsibility while planning a trip to Italy. Tyler, you just put in a pool. Aunt Patricia, you suggested I get a roommate." The room went silent. I loaned Tyler $3,000 for his wedding that I never saw again. I gave Brittany $1,500 when she was evicted. I sent Dad money for flood damage while he was apparently saving for Cabo. Every single person in this room has taken from me, and not one of you could spare anything when I asked. "That's not fair," my mother started. "No," I interrupted. "What's not fair is that the only person who offered to help was Rosa. She tried to give me $4,200, nearly everything she has. The woman you all look down on, who works harder than any of you, who never asks for anything. She was the only one who showed up." I let that sink in. The shame on their faces was satisfying, but it wasn't why I'd done this. "I'm not telling you this to punish you," I said. "I'm telling you because I needed to finally see clearly. Grandma Rose taught me that money shows you who people really are. She was right, and I've seen enough." The meeting ended shortly after that. There were no apologies, only defensive excuses and hasty departures. Patricia muttered something about being ambushed. Tyler claimed I'd been unreasonable. Brittany actually asked if she could borrow $50 for gas on her way out. But as the door closed behind the last of them, I felt something unexpected. Not anger, relief. The weight I'd been carrying for years, the hope that they might someday be different, finally lifted. Rosa stayed to help me clean up. As we washed coffee cups side by side, she asked the question I'd been wrestling with. "What now, Misha?" I smiled. "Now we go house hunting, one for me and one for you." Her protest lasted about 3 minutes before she broke down crying in my arms. That was 8 months ago. Today, I live in a modest but beautiful craftsman home in a quiet Denver neighborhood. Rosa lives 2 streets over in a sunny cottage with a garden she tends every morning before work, though she doesn't have to work anymore. I set up a trust that provides her with a comfortable income for life. She volunteers now at a community center, teaching English to immigrants and helping families navigate systems that once overwhelmed her. I left teaching, but I didn't leave education. I founded a nonprofit that provides emergency financial assistance to teachers facing crises, the same kind of crisis I'd pretended to have. Within 6 months, we'd helped over 150 educators stay afloat during their hardest moments. Jenna joined my board of directors. She'd been right all along about my family, but she never said "I told you so." That's the mark of a true friend. As for my relatives, we still exchange polite texts on holidays. I attended Tyler's daughter's birthday party last month. When Brittany got in trouble again, I anonymously paid for her to attend a financial literacy program, though she doesn't know it was me. When my father had a health scare, I quietly covered the portion of his bills that insurance didn't. They still don't know about the inheritance. To them, I'm just doing well in my new career. Occasionally, someone will make a comment about how lucky I got or hint that they could use some help. I smile and change the subject. I've thought a lot about why I keep helping them in small ways, the same people who wouldn't help me. Part of it is for Grandma Rose, who believed in kindness even when people didn't deserve it. Part of it is for me. I refuse to become bitter. I refuse to let their failures change who I am. But I also refuse to pretend anymore. The performance of family, the forced closeness, the obligatory holiday gatherings where everyone acts like we actually like each other, I'm done with that. My real family now is smaller but realer. Rosa, Jenna, the teachers we've helped through our foundation, who send handwritten thank you notes, the community we've built. Rosa and I had dinner last week on her little patio, watching the sunset paint the mountains pink and gold. You know what I realized? I said. Grandma Rose didn't just leave me money, she left me a test. Not for the family, for me. Rosa tilted her head. What do you mean? She wanted to know if I would use it wisely, if I would protect myself, if I would find the people who deserved to be in my life and let go of the ones who didn't. Rosa smiled, the same warm smile that had welcomed me into her apartment that night when she'd offered me everything she had. And did you pass? I think so, I said. I think I finally did. The inheritance changed my life, but not in the ways I'd imagined. It didn't buy me happiness or fix old wounds. It gave me something far more valuable, the clarity to see who people really were and the freedom to choose who I wanted to become. In the end, the most important thing Grandma Rose taught me wasn't about money at all. It was this: the people who truly belong in your life aren't the ones who show up when you have something to give. They're the ones who reach out when you have nothing to offer but yourself. Have you ever discovered someone's true character when you needed help most? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. And if this resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that their worth isn't measured by what they can give to others. Thank you for being here. And may you find the courage to see clearly, even when it hurts.